So let's just jump right in with a huge question. Do animals grieve? I mean, really grieve? Today, we're going to dig into the science, the stories, and try to figure out if we're the only ones who feel that profound pain of loss. Let's start with this. It's a quote from an elephant researcher, Joyce Poole, and it's kind of chilling. She said, "It is their silence that is most unsettling." And she's talking about how elephants react to their dead, this incredibly quiet, focused attention they give them. It's a kind of behavior that just makes you stop and wonder, right? What is actually going on inside their heads? And listen, it's definitely not just elephants. You might remember this story from back in 2018. It was all over the news. An orca, her name was Tahlequah, carried her dead calf for 17 days. Can you imagine? Over 1,000 miles. The whole world was just glued to this story, totally heartbroken. And it was an incredible display of, well, that's the question, isn't it? What was it? People called it a tour of grief. And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Are we looking at actual complex grief in an animal like Tahlequah? Or are we just doing what humans do? Are we just projecting our own feelings onto a behavior that we can't really explain?
Okay, so to even start to answer that, we've got to move past the heartbreaking stories and get into the science. So let's dive into the science of sorrow. How are researchers even trying to define this stuff?
First things first, to really get what we're looking at, scientists make this really important distinction. Okay? So on one hand, you've got stress, that basic fight or flight thing. But on the other hand, you have grief, which is way more complicated. They are absolutely not the same thing, and that's key.
And this is really the crucial point. Grief isn't just a simple knee-jerk reaction. A lot of scientists draw on the work of an anthropologist named Barbara J. King, and they define it as a process. It's this complex emotional, cognitive, and behavioral response when you lose a companion you've bonded with. It unfolds over time, things like not eating, just looking listless, or paying attention to the body for a really long time.
So, for an animal to experience something we could actually call grief, scientists figure there are probably 3 big things you need. First, you need some pretty advanced smarts, right? Advanced cognitive abilities. Second, you got to be able to form really strong social bonds, to get attached. And third, and this one's tricky, you need some kind of awareness of death. The idea that your buddy is gone for good. Okay, so with that framework in mind, let's go back to our main case study, elephants. We all know the saying, an elephant never forgets, right? Well, that incredible memory isn't just about finding water. It's actually the bedrock of their super deep and complicated social lives. And this is where you really see their unique relationship with death. Elephants are just fascinated by the bones of their own kind. They'll gently touch skulls and tusks with their trunks. There's this one incredible story about a matriarch called Big Tuskless. After she died, her family walked past her research camp, and they made a beeline straight for her jawbone, completely ignoring all the other bones around. And her young son, Butch, he stayed behind for the longest time, just stroking it with his trunk.
This intense fascination they have with death is probably what led to that really powerful myth, one I'm sure you've heard of, the whole idea of the elephant graveyard. This one single kind of magical place where elephants supposedly go when it's their time to die. But, well, the reality is a lot less mystical than that. The truth is, there's just no evidence for one single graveyard. What researchers do find are these spots with a lot of bones, sure, but they're always in places that have food and water. So the thinking is, old or sick elephants head there to try and survive, not to die. It's more like a place of last resort, not some fated final resting spot. Okay, so the graveyard is a myth, but what about another idea, something that sounds just as incredible but might actually be true, something that feels way more intentional? Do elephants actually bury their dead?
The evidence here is really compelling. There was a recent study in northern India that found 5 different cases where it looked like herds buried their dead calves. The little ones were carried to these ditches, put inside, and then covered up with dirt, often with their legs sticking straight up. And get this, in a few of the cases, the whole herd was heard trumpeting and roaring like crazy around the spot.
But you know how science works. You need solid, hard proof. And the skeptics have a good point. Nobody actually saw the elephants do the burying. The researchers found the bodies after the fact. So the argument is, maybe the elephants were just exploring the body with their feet and trunks, and they accidentally covered it with dirt. It might not be a deliberate burial ritual at all. So for now, the jury's still out on that one.
So while we're here debating the ins and outs of their emotional lives, let's not forget that the biological reality of death in the wild is, well, it's pretty brutal. It's fast, it's unsentimental, and it's an absolutely essential part of the ecosystem.
Think about it. An elephant carcass can weigh thousands of pounds. That's not going to just sit there for long. It almost immediately becomes a massive source of food for so many other animals. Hyenas, vultures, lions, you name it. It's a really stark reminder that in nature, when one life ends, it often means a lot of other lives get to go on.
Elephants are obviously a huge, powerful example, but they are definitely not the only ones showing these kinds of behaviors. So let's zoom out a bit and look at how these grief-like responses pop up all across the animal kingdom.
And it's amazing just how widespread these behaviors are. You see it in cetaceans, whales and dolphins, where moms will carry their dead calves trying to keep them from sinking. You see it in primates, like chimp mothers, carrying their dead babies for weeks on end. And, hey, we even see it in our own houses, right? When one of your dogs passes away and the other one just seems lost, searching for their friend.
So after looking at all this evidence, the question kind of shifts, doesn't it? It stops being just if animals grieve, and it becomes, so what? What does it actually mean for us if they can?
I mean, the ethical implications here are huge. The idea that animals might grieve really makes you question everything. How we run our zoos, how we do research, our whole approach to conservation. Think about it. If these animals really feel loss, then every time we separate a bonded pair or a family, we could be causing an amount of emotional pain that we're only just starting to wrap our heads around.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. The science, it's going to keep evolving. But all this evidence really pushes us toward a huge fundamental question. If these complex, intelligent beings feel the pain of loss, what is our responsibility to them? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.